Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven again, folks. Now, last week at the end of the Scopwick episode, we saw the railway line, didn't we, which runs just to the east of Kirby Green. What we've done here in this episode is we've come down the railway line and we're beginning this episode at another level crossing. And here we are, here is said level crossing, and the barriers are down. So any second now, there'll be a train along. You'll find this crossing in the parish of Rowston. The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Rowston, Rolf's farm. This week in North Kesteven we come to Rowston, a tiny village located midway between Scopwick and Digby, just off the road between Ruskington and Metheringham. In this one we won't be seeing much, I grant you, but we will at least be catching a church with a really tall spire, another level crossing on the Peterborough to Lincoln line, and a stone cross that marks the centre of civilisation. Rowston is a place that's occupied more by sheep than it is by humans. Mind you, that's been the case for literally centuries. It's essentially made up of three principal roads: Main Street, North Street and St Clements Close, and a couple of smaller side streets too. It's all based around the mid-18th century Rowston Manor, where the local farming operation, Dennis Estates, is based. The whole thing stands on the site of a former medieval village, whose remains are now few and far between. In the modern village, it's hard to look beyond the 12th century church of St Clement, whose ancient and decorative stonework is an immediate attraction. That said, Rowston used to have a school, which still stands, and it may have even had a pub years ago, if a little bit of detective work from yours truly turns out to be right. So come with me for another gentle stroll in the countryside to see what Rowston is all about. We start at the Peterborough to Lincoln railway line, and like last week, once again, the barriers were down. This time it was for a goods train. It was a long one. See how many wagons you can count on this one as it flies past us towards Lincoln. The railway line marks the point where Rowston Fen Lane becomes this, the village's main street. Now let's not get too carried away by the term Main Street. Rowston is a tiny village with an equally tiny population. Most of the village is laid out along this one road, but there are a few cul-de-sacs here and there, such as St Clements Close. This one is named after the church, which is easily the most iconic structure in the place. Other than it and the housing, Rowston is all about farming. Much like neighbouring Scopwick, sheep are a common sight in these parts, but there's arable land here too. In terms of listed buildings, Rowston has 4. This tall house called the Elms isn't one of them, but it's not long before we find the first one. Where Main Street meets North Street is a simple green, opposite which is a phone box. This is sadly empty, and it's seen better days, I think. That's not the listed building though. On the green itself is a restored village cross. This is both Grade 2 listed and a scheduled monument. It was restored in 1910, a process which retained the top step, the base and the shaft of a 15th century original. Although largish, it's the sort of feature you could so easily miss. Not far away from the green is a stone shelter. I guess this was for a bus at one time, but there aren't any that pass through Rowston these days. Next we come to the tall, imposing limestone church of St Clement. This is a Grade 1 listed building and dates from the 12th century. Its features include some decorated stonework which dates from Anglo-Saxon times. It was refitted in 1741 and restored in the early 20th century. Located within it are 3 fragments of an Anglo-Saxon sculpture, probably part of a single grave cover dating from between the mid-10th and early 11th centuries. Now, I don't know about you, but when you come across a church that's got a spire as tall as this one, you're sort of attracted to that more than anything else. However, it is worth looking at things that are a bit closer to the ground, shall we say. Have a look at this fantastic masonry work here around the arch of this door. Absolutely fantastic, this. I love it. I love it. And that's the sort of thing that I don't tend to look at, generally speaking. But I noticed that as I walked up the gravel path here. And yeah, I just thought it was worthy of a mention. Right, let's carry on past the church, and it'll take us to a junction where on the right hand side there's a road that leads up towards Kirby Green, and if you were to go straight on you'd be heading towards the main road past Scopwick, which we saw last week. So yeah, let's head to that junction. Opposite the church is a pair of houses on the end of a track. I suspect at some point there may have been a pub here. Behind the houses there was an old pub sign, which I'm pointing out to you here. Its name was the Nag's Head, but I could find no record of a pub in Rowston. That one's a mystery. There's no such issues on the next corner though. Dennis Estates own and manage the farms in these parts, and their main office is based at Rowston Manor over the road. With the abundance of flat, high-grade farmland around the place, it's no surprise that farming is the main business out here. Now, even though Rowston is tiny, and it always has been, it used to have a school. This is the building in question. This was a national school, built in 1852, and the third of the 4 listed buildings in Rowston. The only one that remains is dead opposite, and of course, that would be Rowston Manor. It's a limestone farmhouse dating from 1741. The only additions it's ever had came in 1985. Not much more is known about it, but it's certainly a house typical of the rural North Kesteven landscape. It's very isolated up this end of the village, but I imagine it's not the worst place to live. Now, you may remember that last week we mentioned that this area is good for sheep. Absolutely true here in Rowston. You can see behind me there are loads of sheep. There's definitely more sheep than humans that live in this particular village here in North Kesteven. We've reached the end of the route, because beyond this the road runs off towards that main road, and we're going to turn around and head back to where we came from. Lovely place. And to finish, we head past that field of sheep and onto the B1188, the main road between Metheringham and Ruskington. Next up, we're going to a village which has a feature we've seen before, but it's a lot smaller than ones we've seen previously. It's a good thing it's not used anymore. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.